For a moment, Ethan couldn't breathe. The cold bit through his gloves as he trembled, staring at the two little girls curled together like porcelain dolls. Their hair, tangled but golden, framed faces too still for this world. "Dear God," he whispered, his voice cracking in the frozen air. He reached out, hesitated, then pressed his fingers gently to one girl's wrist. Nothing. Then the other. A pulse. Faint. So faint it could have been imagined. Without thinking, he lifted the box, heavier than it looked, and rushed toward his SUV. The wind howled, as if the night itself was warning him to stop. Inside the car, the heater blasted to life, fogging the windows. Ethan tore off his coat, wrapping it around the children. His heart pounded with panic and something else. Guilt. A memory flashed, a little girl's laughter, long silenced. He swallowed hard, forcing it down. This wasn't the time. He hit the gas. The SUV fishtailed but caught grip again. The hospital was 15 miles away, and every second mattered. The younger twin stirred. Her lips parted, a soundless whisper escaping, "Cold." Ethan's eyes darted to her reflection in the rearview mirror. "Hold on, sweetheart. You're safe now." Snow thickened, blinding the road. His wipers screamed across the glass. He leaned forward, muscles tense, vision tunneling on the path ahead. Then, out of nowhere, headlights. Bright. Close. A black limousine emerged from the storm behind him, sleek and menacing, its engine humming louder than the wind. It kept distance for a while, matching his speed, then drew closer. Ethan's gut twisted. Who drives a limo through a blizzard? He sped up. The limo followed. His pulse quickened. "Not tonight," he muttered, tightening his grip on the wheel. Minutes felt like hours. The girls shivered under his coat. When he looked again, the limo was gone, vanished into the snow. He exhaled, almost laughing in disbelief, when blue lights suddenly flashed ahead. A fallen tree blocked the road. He braked hard, the SUV sliding sideways until it stopped inches from the trunk. His breath came in ragged bursts. He looked back, and froze. The limo had stopped behind him. Its tinted window rolled down just enough for a sliver of a face to appear, sharp, expressionless, and watching. Ethan's stomach dropped. "What do you want?" he shouted, stepping out of the car. The cold hit him like knives. He squinted through the storm. "You hear me?" No answer. The limo's headlights flickered, then dimmed. The driver's door opened, but no one stepped out. A sound, soft, almost like crying, drifted from inside the SUV. Ethan turned back. The twins. The older one had opened her eyes. Blue. Fearful. Trembling. "It's okay," he whispered, climbing back in. "I won't let anyone hurt you." He hit reverse, maneuvering around the fallen tree, eyes flicking between the girls and the mirror. The limo stayed still. When the road cleared again, he floored it. The city lights flickered faintly in the distance. As he drove, a question burned in his mind. Who were they? And why did that car follow him? The girls huddled together, whispering in their sleep. One word repeated softly between them. Grace. Ethan gripped the wheel tighter. Grace. The name echoed like a ghost in his chest. He hadn't heard that name spoken in years. If you were there in that moment, what would you have done? The voice in his head whispered. Be honest. Comment your answer below. And if words fail you, just hit like to prove that compassion still matters. The storm finally began to thin. The road curved toward the city, and toward answers Ethan wasn't ready to face. The hospital's emergency bay glowed faintly through the storm like a sanctuary in the dark. Ethan barely parked before throwing open his door, rushing around to lift the twins from the backseat. Nurses ran toward him as soon as they saw the box, confusion flashing across their faces, then urgency. 2 girls. They're freezing. They're alive, Ethan gasped, his voice breaking. They whisked the twins inside, their small bodies wrapped in blankets, while Ethan stood outside catching his breath. Snow melted on his face like tears he didn't want to admit were there. He followed into the fluorescent-lit hallway, each step echoing like a heartbeat. Doctors shouted orders, machines beeped, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt utterly powerless. He stood against the wall, hands trembling, watching through the glass. One nurse pressed oxygen over a little girl's mouth. Another rubbed her arms rapidly, trying to coax warmth back into her fragile skin. The older twin stirred again, whispering something that even the nurse couldn't catch. Ethan leaned closer to the glass, straining to read her lips. One word. Again, Grace. He turned away, his heart pounding like thunder. Grace. His daughter. Gone 10 years ago in a house fire. He had built empires since then, bought silence with wealth, buried pain beneath marble walls. Yet here it was, raw and breathing again. A soft voice broke through his thoughts. Sir. He looked up. A nurse, early 30s, tired eyes but kind. Her name tag read Lily. They are stable, she said gently. Severe hypothermia, but your timing saved them. Relief crashed through him. They're going to be okay. With time, she nodded. We've notified the police. They'll want to know where you found them. Ethan's gaze drifted toward the window, snow still swirling outside. In a box by the old oak on Route 9, he murmured. No one else around. Lily hesitated, studying him. That's strange. That area's been closed for months. He frowned. Why? There was a fire, she said. An orphanage burned down last year. Some children went missing. Ethan's knees weakened. He leaned against the wall. A fire. Twin girls. A black limousine. Do you know who might have been looking for them? Lily asked quietly. He shook his head, though his thoughts screamed otherwise. There were people he once did business with, people who erased their mistakes, not fixed them. He stared at his reflection in the hallway mirror. A man who once measured worth in stocks and stone, now standing there, drenched in snow and guilt. When Lily touched his shoulder, he flinched. You should sit, she said softly. I'll get you some water. He nodded, barely hearing her. His eyes fixed again on the girls through the glass. Their chests rose faintly, tiny lives fighting to stay. The door opened behind him, firm footsteps echoed. A detective entered, long coat still dripping with melting snow. Ethan Cole? He asked, holding up a badge. Yes, Ethan said warily. I'm Detective Marcus Hale. We got a call about the children. He eyed Ethan carefully. You're the one who found them? Yes. On Route 9. Marcus took notes. Did you see anyone else nearby? A black limousine, Ethan said immediately. It followed me. The detective froze mid-scribble. A limo? Did you get the plate number? No. It vanished in the storm. Marcus exhaled slowly. That's unsettling. There have been reports of a similar car seen near abandoned sites around the city. No IDs. No prints. Like it never exists. Ethan's mind raced. What would anyone want with two little girls? Marcus's jaw tightened. That's what I'm trying to find out. Through the window, one of the twins stirred again, her small hand twitching beneath the blanket. Ethan's eyes softened. They need rest. Answers can wait. Marcus studied him. You have kids, Mr. Cole? Ethan's lips parted, then closed. I did, he said quietly. Marcus nodded once, sympathy flickering in his eyes before he left to make calls. Lily returned, handing Ethan the water. You should go home, she murmured. We'll take care of them tonight. Ethan shook his head. I'll stay. He sat down in the hallway chair, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the small window to their room. Outside, the snow had stopped. The world was eerily still. He didn't know it yet, but this night, these two fragile souls were about to pull him into a past he thought he'd buried forever. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Write yes and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. The lights dimmed slightly in the corridor. Somewhere down the hall, a nurse whispered, "They're waking up." Ethan stood, every muscle tight, his heart caught between dread and hope. Ethan stepped closer to the glass as the younger twin blinked open her eyes, squinting against the sterile brightness. Her lips trembled, voice a soft whisper. "Where's Grace?" "I'm here," came a weak reply beside her. The older twin turned her head slowly, eyes cloudy with confusion but alive. Ethan's throat tightened. For a moment, all the sounds in the corridor vanished. No footsteps, no machines, just those two fragile voices pulling him back from years of emptiness. Lily hurried in, adjusting their blankets. "You're safe now," she whispered to them. "You're in a hospital." The older girl's gaze drifted toward the glass, directly into Ethan's. Her stare was steady, searching, almost too knowing for someone so small. Ethan raised a trembling hand against the glass, his breath fogging the surface. Something in her eyes. Recognition? Or just fear? "Who are they?" he whispered to Lily when she stepped out moments later. "They didn't say much," she replied softly. "Just their names, Grace and Emma. They keep asking for someone named Mother Ruth. Does that mean anything to you?" Ethan's chest ached. The name meant nothing, yet somehow it felt carved into the walls of his mind. "Mother Ruth," he repeated under his breath. Lily nodded. "We'll run their names through the system, check missing children reports." He leaned against the wall. "What if no one comes for them?" "Then they'll be placed under care," she said. "But the older one keeps saying they don't want to go back." Ethan frowned. "Back where?" She wouldn't say. That night stretched long. Nurses moved like ghosts under dim lights, and Ethan sat outside their room, sleepless. The city beyond the windows pulsed with distant life, unaware of the quiet miracle happening in that cold hospital wing. Just past midnight, a soft knock startled him. Marcus stood there again, holding a file. "Ran some checks," the detective said, sliding into the seat beside him. "No records of these girls. No birth certificates, no photos, nothing." Ethan looked at him sharply. "So they just appeared?" "Seems that way." Marcus rubbed his jaw. "The box they were in? Old wood, no fingerprints. But carved inside, near the bottom, a single letter C." Ethan froze. "C? Yeah. Ring any bells?" Ethan forced a calm he didn't feel. "No. None." Marcus narrowed his eyes, unconvinced. "You sure?" He nodded, staring straight ahead. After the detective left, Ethan pulled out his phone, scrolling through his old contact list. Names from another life. Investors, contractors, and one he hadn't seen in years, Clive Marrow. Clive had managed one of his older properties years ago, near Route 9, the same area of the fire Lily mentioned. Ethan's pulse raced. Could it be connected? He hesitated, thumb hovering over the call button. Before he could press it, a sound behind him made him turn. Grace stood in the doorway, clutching a blanket around her. Barefoot. Shivering. "Hey," he said softly, standing. "You should be resting." She tilted her head, eyes deep and unblinking. "You saved us." He swallowed. "I found you." "Why?" The question hit harder than he expected. "Because no one else did," he said quietly. She stepped closer, her small hand barely reaching his. "You're sad," she whispered. "Like my father was." Ethan froze, emotion tightening his throat. "Your father?" She nodded. "He had eyes like yours. He promised to come back, but the black car took him." Ethan's skin went cold. "What black car?" Grace looked toward the window where snow still fell faintly under the streetlight. "It waits in the dark," she murmured. "Always watching." Before he could ask more, Lily appeared, rushing over. "Sweetheart, you can't be up yet. Come on, let's get you back to bed." Grace looked back at Ethan as she was led away. "You're not afraid of the dark, are you?" He didn't answer. When Lily returned a moment later, she said quietly, "She won't sleep. Keeps drawing that same car over and over." Ethan rubbed his eyes, exhausted. "Drawings?" "Yeah. I'll show you in the morning." He nodded, staring out into the storm again. Somewhere out there, that limousine was still out on the road, and deep down, He knew it wasn't done with them. Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight. Ethan sat back, the hum of the hospital machines fading behind him. In the reflection of the window, he saw himself, and just beyond his shoulder, two small figures sleeping under a warm glow, safe for now, unaware that the past was already on its way back. Morning crept through the hospital windows in a soft grey light. Ethan hadn't slept. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but his mind burned with questions that refused to rest. Every tick of the clock only made the silence louder. Lily approached him quietly, holding a folded sheet of paper. She drew this, she said, handing it over. Ethan unfolded it carefully. Crayon lines, shaky but deliberate, formed an image of a long black limousine parked beside what looked like a burning building. Two stick figures stood in front, holding hands. Above them, written in small uneven letters, was a single word, home. He stared at it, a chill crawling up his spine. She remembers the fire. Lily nodded slowly. She said the car was there that night. Before Ethan could respond, the automatic doors at the far end of the hallway slid open. Marcus entered, his coat dusted with frost, his expression grim. "Mr. Cole, we need to talk." Ethan followed him to a quieter corner. "What's going on?" "We traced your sub's dashcam footage," Marcus said, opening his folder. "It recorded more than you thought." He flipped the page. Still frames from the night before, headlights, snow, and faintly in the distance, the black limousine. In one frame, just before it vanished, the image caught the car's side emblem, a small engraved letter C. Ethan felt the world tilt beneath him. He took a step back. Marcus noticed. "You know something, don't you?" Ethan's lips pressed tight. "I might have, years ago. I partnered with a man named Clive Marrow. He ran certain projects for me, construction, housing. But one of those projects was that orphanage on Route 9. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "The one that burned down?" "Yes. It was supposed to be a shelter program. But when the fire happened, I was told there were no survivors." "Who told you that?" Ethan hesitated. "Clive." Marcus's jaw tightened. "We'll find him." As Marcus left, Ethan sank into a chair, the drawing still in his hands. The girls weren't just random victims. They were pieces of a past his money couldn't erase. Later that day, he stood by their room again. Grace was awake, sitting upright now, her small fingers tracing the edge of her blanket. Emma slept beside her, her breathing steady. "Grace," he said softly, stepping inside. She looked up, cautious but calm. He held out the drawing. "You made this?" She nodded. "That's where we lived. The lady with white hair used to read to us." "Mother Ruth?" he asked. Her eyes brightened. "Yes. She said we'd be safe forever. But then, the fire." Ethan sat on the edge of the chair beside her. "Do you remember who started it?" Grace's expression darkened. "The man in the black car came. Mother Ruth tried to stop him. He said we belong to him now." Ethan's pulse raced. "What did he look like?" She hesitated. "He wore a ring. It had the same letter." She drew it in the air, a sharp, curling C. Ethan felt his stomach twist. "Clive." Before he could speak, alarms blared down the hallway. Nurses rushed past, voices urgent. "Security to East Entrance." "Security." Ethan stood, heart hammering. He darted out into the hall, and there it was again. Through the glass doors, parked under the grey daylight, the same black limousine idled silently. "Get those kids to a safe room," Lily shouted as she ran toward him. But before security arrived, the car's door opened. A man in a long black coat stepped out, tall, calm, his breath clouding in the cold. He looked straight at Ethan and smiled, not cruelly, but with the cold certainty of ownership. Ethan's fists clenched. "You shouldn't be here." The man tilted his head. "You always did like playing hero, Ethan. But some debts never melt away." Before Ethan could answer, The man slipped back into the car. The limousine rolled away, disappearing as silently as it had appeared. Lily joined him at the door, breathless. Who was that? Ethan's voice shook. The past. She frowned. What does he want? Ethan looked toward the twins' room, his chest heavy. Them. If that moment hit you hard, leave a red heart hash. Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't. Ethan stood there long after the car had gone, the snow melting on his shoes, the air heavy with ghosts. Somewhere deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The hospital security team combed through every inch of the parking lot, but by the time they reached the road, the limousine had vanished into the winter fog. No tire tracks, no cameras catching its exit. It was as if the storm had swallowed it whole. Ethan sat in the cafeteria with Marcus, a cup of untouched coffee in front of him. The detective's notebook lay open, pages filled with names, dates, connections, but none of it seemed enough. You're saying this Clive Marrow was your associate? Marcus pressed. Ethan nodded slowly. Years ago. He managed properties, ran a few orphanage programs under my company's charity division. He was ambitious and reckless. I cut ties after I found irregular funding reports. Then the fire happened. Marcus studied him carefully. And you think he's the one in the limousine? I don't think, Ethan said quietly. I know. Marcus closed his notebook. Then we'll find him. But you need to understand something. If he's been covering his tracks this long, this isn't just a missing children case. It's trafficking, Ethan. He's selling them. Ethan's stomach turned. They're just kids. Why? Because evil doesn't need a reason, Marcus said grimly, standing. It just needs profit. When the detective left, Ethan sat there, staring into the reflection of the cold window. He saw himself, not the millionaire, not the businessman, but a man who'd turned a blind eye long ago, trusting others to manage his empire while he drowned in grief. He'd wanted to build something good. But maybe, in doing so, he'd built something monstrous instead. A sudden noise broke through his thoughts, a soft, trembling sob. He turned. Grace stood there again, barefoot, her hospital gown hanging loose. Grace, he said gently, kneeling. You shouldn't be out here. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. They said we might have to go somewhere else. A new home. Ethan hesitated. That's just until they find your family. She shook her head. We don't have one. Not anymore. The words pierced him like a blade. He reached out, hesitating only a second before resting his hand on her shoulder. You have me now, he said softly. I'll make sure no one ever hurts you again. Grace looked up, her expression unreadable. You promise? I promise. In that moment, something inside him shifted, a quiet vow carved into his heart. When Lily arrived moments later, leading Grace gently away, Ethan knew he couldn't just sit and wait for the system to protect them. Systems were built by people like him, people who once chose convenience over conscience. That night, he drove to his penthouse downtown, the city lights reflecting off the windshield. Every corner of his home felt hollow. He passed framed awards, photos of charity events, smiling faces of people who praised him for his good heart. He walked straight to his study and opened a drawer that hadn't seen light in years. Inside was a silver flash drive, the only copy of Clive's original contracts, sealed and forgotten. As the files loaded on his computer, Ethan's chest tightened. Dozens of hidden transactions appeared, payments to shell organizations, some tied to youth care programs. But beneath each name was something darker, codes for age, gender, and destinations. His hand trembled over the mouse. Oh God, he whispered. He grabbed his phone and called Marcus. I have evidence. Everything. Clive's whole operation. It's all here. Marcus's tone sharpened instantly. Stay where you are. I'm on my way. Ethan nodded, but before he could end the call, a noise echoed through the penthouse. A soft click, the sound of a door unlocking. He froze. Slowly, he turned toward the hallway. The front door was open. A shadow moved across the wall, tall and deliberate. He whispered into the phone, "They found me." The line went dead. He stepped back, heart pounding, searching for anything he could use. The figure stepped into view, black coat, ring glinting under the city light. Clive Marrow smiled faintly. "You should have stayed buried, Ethan." Ethan clenched his fists. "You destroyed lives." Clive tilted his head. "You funded it." Silence. Every word cut deep because it was true. Ethan's hands shook, fury and shame colliding in his chest. "Where are the girls?" Ethan demanded. Clive smiled. "You'll see them soon. One way or another." He turned, leaving as silently as he came. The elevator dinged. By the time Ethan reached it, Clive was gone. Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. Ethan leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Outside, sirens began to rise in the distance. Marcus was on his way. But Ethan knew this wasn't over. He wasn't running anymore. This time, he'd face the darkness he helped create. By the time Marcus arrived, the penthouse was already swarming with police. Officers swept every room while Ethan sat on the couch, hands still trembling, the flash drive clutched in his grip like a lifeline. Marcus crouched in front of him. "You're lucky to be alive," he said quietly. "Whoever that was, he wanted to scare you. But next time, he won't miss." Ethan stared into the distance. "He won't stop, Marcus. Not until he gets them back." "Then we'll make sure he doesn't," Marcus said, holding out his hand. "The files." Ethan hesitated, then handed over the flash drive. "This has everything, payments, contacts, offshore transfers. Enough to bury him." Marcus took it, his expression grave. "I'll have our cyber unit dig through this tonight. You stay somewhere safe." Ethan shook his head. "I'm not hiding. Those girls trusted me." Marcus sighed. "You're not equipped to fight someone like him alone." "Maybe not," Ethan said, standing. "But I have to try." Hours later, the city slept under a dull orange glow. Ethan found himself back at the hospital, sitting beside the girl's room once more. Grace was awake, her sister curled against her shoulder, breathing peacefully. "You came back," she whispered. "I told you I would," Ethan replied softly. She tilted her head, studying him with eyes far older than her years. "You look sad again." He managed a faint smile. "Sometimes sadness is just love with nowhere to go." Grace seemed to think about that for a moment before saying, "Mother Ruth used to say broken hearts let more light in." Ethan's throat tightened. "She sounds wise." "She was," Grace said. "Before the fire, she told us that if the world ever turns cold, find the man who remembers warmth." He froze. What did she mean? Grace shrugged. "She said his heart would know us before his mind did." Ethan looked away, his jaw tightening as tears threatened. It couldn't be coincidence. These girls, somehow, they were connected to the one wound he'd never healed. He brushed a hand across his face. "Grace, if you remember anything else, anything that could help us stop that man, you tell me, okay?" She nodded, eyes heavy with trust. Moments later, Lily entered quietly with a gentle smile. "They've been asking for you when you're gone," she told him. Ethan looked up. "Me?" "Yeah," Lily said softly. "They said you make them feel safe. I guess they can sense something in you." He smiled weakly. "Maybe they just see through the walls I built." Lily hesitated before sitting across from him. "You're doing more than you realize, Ethan. You didn't just save them from the cold. You gave them a reason to believe in people again." Ethan looked through the window at the twins, both asleep now under the soft glow of the monitors. Their small hands still clung to each other even in dreams. For the first time in years, a flicker of warmth lit inside him, faint but alive. He turned back to Lily. "If I had done this sooner, maybe fewer kids would have been hurt." Lily reached out, placing her hand over his. "Regret can't rewrite yesterday, but compassion can save tomorrow." Ethan met her eyes and nodded, the weight on his chest softening just a little. He sat there long into the night, watching the snowfall outside begin to ease, each flake melting as it touched the window pane. The city lights shimmered beyond it, distant, imperfect, but still alive. He whispered to himself, "This time, I'll make it right." If you believe love still wins, comment Amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. Ethan stood, stretching tired muscles, and turned toward the window once more. Across the street, a shadow flickered, a black silhouette by the lamppost. The limousine. He felt his pulse quicken, but this time he didn't move. He wasn't afraid anymore. The figure stood there for a moment, then disappeared into the night. Ethan took one last look at the girls and whispered, "You'll never go back to the dark." Tomorrow, he would meet Marcus again. They would take this to the authorities, expose every secret Clive buried. But for now, just for this moment, peace returned, if only for a breath. The next morning brought a dull calm, the kind that hides storms beneath it. Ethan stood beside Marcus in the precinct's glass-walled conference room, watching tech analysts pull files from the flash drive he'd handed over. Lines of data scrolled fast on the monitors, payment trails, encrypted notes, hidden charities masking darker trades. "Clive built this network under your nose," Marcus said quietly. "Fake shelters across 3 states, all under your old foundation." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Then I'll dismantle it myself." "You won't need to," Marcus said. "We've got a warrant out. Once we track that limo, he's done." But as if on cue, one of the analysts turned pale. "Sir, you might want to see this." On the screen, a live security feed showed the hospital entrance, a black limousine parked right outside. Ethan's heart stuttered. "He's there." Marcus grabbed his radio. "All units, move. Hospital lockdown, now." Ethan didn't wait. He was already running out the door, adrenaline burning through every nerve. By the time he reached the hospital, chaos had begun. Nurses herded patients into secure rooms while alarms blared overhead. Ethan sprinted through the hallways, shouting, "Grace! Emma!" He turned the corner and stopped dead. The twins were standing at the end of the corridor, holding hands, and Clive stood behind them. His face was calm, as if the world wasn't shattering around him. "Let them go," Ethan barked. Clive's smile didn't waver. "I'm simply reclaiming what's mine. They're not yours. Everything has an owner, Ethan. You of all people should know that." Clive stepped forward slightly, the girls shrinking back toward the wall. Ethan raised his hands. "Please, don't do this. They're children." Clive tilted his head. "And you think you can save them? The man who paid me to build the orphanage that burned? The one who looked away when it collapsed?" Ethan's chest heaved. "I didn't know." "But you didn't care to know," Clive interrupted. "You built your towers while I cleaned up the ashes." For a brief moment, silence filled the hall, heavy, suffocating. Ethan saw the truth reflected in the man's eyes. Guilt he'd buried was standing right in front of him, breathing through another's rage. He took a step closer. "Then let me fix it." Clive laughed bitterly. "Fix it? You can't fix death." Marcus's voice echoed from behind. "Freeze!" Clive's head snapped toward the sound, and in that split second, Ethan lunged. He grabbed Grace, pulling her behind him, while Marcus tackled Clive to the ground. The gun Clive had been hiding slid across the floor, spinning until it hit the wall. "Get them out!" Marcus shouted. Ethan scooped up Emma and ran, Grace gripping his coat tightly. He didn't stop until they reached the far wing, where Lily waited with a frightened nurse. "Are they okay?" she asked, shaking. "They are safe," Ethan panted. "Clive's done." Moments later, the sound of sirens filled the air. More police, more noise, more chaos. But beneath it all, Ethan finally felt something new, the weight lifting. Hours passed before Marcus appeared again, exhausted but alive. "He's in custody," he said. "And he's talking. The network's over." Ethan sat back in a chair, every muscle trembling with release. He turned toward the twins, now asleep again, finally at peace. "They'll need a place," Marcus said softly. "Protection, therapy, a home." Ethan looked at him, eyes glassy. "I have plenty of homes." Marcus smiled faintly. "You sure you're ready for that?" Ethan nodded. "It's time I start being the man I was supposed to be." The detective clapped his shoulder. "Then you already are." Lily entered quietly, her expression soft. "They asked if you'll stay when they wake up." Ethan smiled through the ache in his chest. "I'm not going anywhere." She hesitated. "You know, sometimes fate doesn't give second chances. It gives reminders. Maybe this was yours." He looked through the window at the dawn breaking beyond the city, pale light spilling across rooftops like forgiveness itself. "Then I'll make it count." If this story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still stayed kind. One click can be your way of saying, "I felt you." Grace stirred in her sleep, whispering something only he could hear. "Home." Ethan's eyes filled. For the first time in years, he didn't turn away from the word. Outside, the snow finally stopped. The limousine was gone for good. But in its place, something new had begun. Not perfection, not wealth, but peace. And that, Ethan realized, was the richest thing he'd ever owned. Weeks passed. Winter began to loosen its grip, and the first hints of spring colored the city streets. The snow outside Ethan's window had melted into silver puddles, reflecting the pale sun. Inside his townhouse, once cold and quiet, laughter now echoed faintly. Grace and Emma sat by the fireplace, sketching with new crayons Lily had brought them. Their drawings were brighter now. No fires, no limousines, no shadows. Just houses, trees, and smiling faces. Ethan watched from the kitchen doorway, a mug of tea warming his hands. Each sound of their giggle chipped away another layer of the emptiness that had defined his life for a decade. Lily walked in behind him, resting a hand on his shoulder. "You look different," she said softly. He smiled. "Maybe I finally remembered what peace feels like." "They're healing," she said, nodding toward the girls. "You gave them that." Ethan shook his head gently. "No, they gave it to me." She smiled, eyes glinting. "Then maybe that's what real healing is, when broken hearts fix each other." He didn't respond, but the truth of her words settled deep inside him. Later that evening, the twins insisted on a bedtime story. Ethan sat between their small beds, holding a worn book from his late daughter's shelf. His voice trembled at first, but as he read, something inside him grew stronger, steadier. Halfway through the story, Grace reached out, placing her hand over his. "Can you read like this every night?" He smiled, eyes misty. "As long as you want me to." Emma yawned softly. "We're safe now, right?" Ethan brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "You are. Forever." When their breathing slowed and sleep took them, he sat there a while longer, watching the soft rise and fall of their chests. A peace he'd once thought unreachable filled the room, warm and weightless. He stood and stepped onto the balcony. The city stretched before him, lights flickering, alive, imperfect. He thought about the man he used to be, a millionaire chasing silence, running from ghosts. And now, here he was, not richer, not cleaner, but whole. The phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from Marcus, Clive confessed. The network's dismantled. It's over. Ethan stared at the screen, exhaling slowly. "It's over," he whispered to the night. But deep down, he knew, some endings aren't about closure. They're about beginning again. He looked back at the room where the twins slept. Their drawings were taped to the walls. One showed the three of them standing under a tree, sunlight breaking through clouds above them. At the bottom, scrawled in uneven handwriting, were two words, "Our family." Ethan's eyes glistened. For years, he had searched for redemption in numbers, in buildings, in achievements. But redemption had been waiting in the simplest form. Two fragile hearts that trusted him without reason. He whispered into the quiet, "Thank you, Grace, thank you, Emma. And for the first time since his daughter's death, he didn't feel the need to apologize to the stars. Days turned to months. The girls began attending school, their laughter filling the house each morning before the bus arrived. Ethan often found their drawings tucked into his briefcase, small reminders that love doesn't erase the past, but it does rewrite the future. One afternoon, while helping them plant tiny flowers in the garden, Emma asked, "Why do you always smile when it rains?" Ethan knelt beside her, pressing the soil gently over the roots. "Because rain means the world remembers to cry. And when it's done, everything grows." Grace tilted her head. "So people grow after they cry, too." He smiled, tears in his eyes. "Exactly." They both laughed, their small hands covered in dirt, their innocence radiant. That night, when the first raindrops hit the window, Ethan looked out again, no longer haunted, but grateful. The black limousine, the fire, the guilt, all of it had finally melted away. What remained was the sound of rain, 2 sleeping children, and a man who had finally learned that wealth isn't measured in what you own, but in what you protect. He turned off the lights, whispering softly into the quiet house, "We're home now." And somewhere, he liked to believe, his daughter, the first Grace, was smiling, too.